All right, welcome back to the Bad MMA Math Fight breakdown. This time for UFC Fight Night. I think we're on 87. This was actually a really good card, and I'm probably more surprised than anyone about that. Probably by default, let's be honest. We have had some awful, foul-smelling garbage this year, especially in terms of fight nights. So this one was a really pleasant surprise. I just want to point out, there was not one female fight on this card, and it turned out to be pretty great. Coincidence? Like I said, we've got some cracking finishes, one or two fraud checks, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and some very decent action across the card, for the most part. I had to watch the prelims at my niece's birthday party, so drop your boy a sub for his dedication to the game. Let's go. Thanks to all the subscribers, new and old. Let's get straight into this. All right, so the first fight was a lightweight scrap between RADZEBOV and SELWADY. Now, I call this one the banana skin of the night and a tricky one to pick. And I'm not going to lie, after doing a little bit of extra research, I kind of ended up snaking everyone and betting on Loic at the last second, despite originally picking SELWADY. Now, I did put that fine-tooth comb through, and it was pretty obvious looking at it. Despite the Hardwick win, which SELWADY got in his last one, he's pretty much been fighting absolute fucking bums apart from that. Now, despite that summation, both these men did prove in this fight that they do belong at this level. It was fast-paced, both men put pressure on throughout, and to summarize, the fight basically took place in two realms. You had SELWADY, who had the advantage at kickboxing range, had really slick movement, and RADZEBOV seemed to have the advantage when he was able to step in and close that distance. He landed some really nice shovel uppercuts throughout the fight, and knees especially. Both men really had their moments. Loic edged the first for me, and SELWADY won the second, proving in that round that he has some really nice takedown game and isn't entirely one-dimensional, which is a bright thing to look for going forwards. Ultimately, though, it was Loic's advantages that proved the more telling when he stepped in again in the third early, caught SELWADY with a combo, and finished him really nastily on the ground. It was a great fight between two possibly inbred mutants. Started the card off somewhat with a bang, so I'm grateful for it for that. All right, now the next fight was a little bit of a drop in terms of hype. This fight was completely fucking pointless, but at least it was quick. Cunningham is utter gutter trash and shouldn't have been in there in the first place, and I did mention that in the build-up. Now, KLEIN did win this dominantly at the end of the first, getting a finish, but he did have some moments where he got caught a couple of times looking a little bit sloppy. So I still think when he comes up against some of the elite in the division, I'm going to be less inclined to trust him in those fights. Now, he did get the win here. Short notice fights are always a little bit risky, so I'm going to give him a little bit of credit there. But honestly, as I said, watching him struggle at times against Cunningham, who caught him, has just made me ask more questions about KLEIN than it did anything else. So, like I said, he got the win. This fight happened. We didn't really learn much. Let's just move on. All right, now third fight, we got two middleweights, and Jesus, Duncan bullied the fuck out of RIBEIRO, and I said this was going to happen. I called this in the build-up. Duncan's striking diversity is really, really good. He went for that patented reverse elbow, which I really love. He kept a high guard when RIBEIRO was stepping in to potentially show moments where he might do something. And then when Duncan got in close, he managed to do some really nasty damage. Now, he showed a lot of naivety in his fight against Petrosian a few fights ago, which really disappointed me. I expected better from him. But, as we often say with losses, he's clearly learned from it. He worked the body really nicely, landed takedowns and ground and pounds. And when he had Ribeiro pinned up against the cage, he landed some really nasty calculated damage, especially to the body. Now, Ribeiro is a bit of a one-trick pony, but he's relatively dangerous with that trick. But Duncan just stayed responsible with the high guard, and then when he needed to, stepped in and beat the brakes off him. Very dominant performance. Great win from the Brit. You know, the diversity was great. It wasn't just the striking, but the way he mixed up takedowns, ground and pounds. Really loved this performance. And we saw him do this a lot in the regionals. And now it's actually nice to see him doing it against decent competition in the UFC. All right, on to the next one. We've got Zahabi versus Basharat. Now, of all the fights on this card, this was probably the one that caught me by surprise the most. Now, we all know that Basharat fights are almost never barnstormers, and that's why I kind of want to see the pricks lose, because they tend to win by being effective, but not, you know, damaging or interesting. I actually prefer Javid for being a little bit more strike-focused than his boring brother, but ironically, that's what cost him in this one. Now, usually he uses takedowns to get control time during rounds when his striking isn't as effective, but I guess he wanted to prove he could be more than that, and it absolutely boomeranged. Go back to being a boring fuck like your brother. I guess. I can't believe I'm giving this advice. Now, this was a simple one to score in a lot of ways. Basharat landed a few spinning kicks in the first round and outlanded Zahabi in that round, so won that round. Then they both tapped away at each other in rounds 2 and 3, and Zahabi did it a little bit more and won those last 2 rounds. Neither man was hurt. Nothing exciting whatsoever happened in this fight, and ultimately this is a terrible loss for Basharat, who will get sent tumbling back down now. Zahabi's nothing in the division, isn't that good, is old, and yeah, this is like a huge fraud check and a massive step down for him. He's probably going to go back to humping kneecaps in his next one. It was a boring spar-level, waste-of-time fight. Again, as I said, it's a fraud check, and not the last one of the evening. All right, this next one was a short-notice one between Oliveira and SOPAJ. There was so much bad blood going into this one, which was fucking bizarre, considering that neither man had a fucking clue who the other one was 48 hours before this fight took place. But, you know, whatever it takes to get your dick hard, fellas. This fight was so back and forth and generally a roller coaster. I really enjoyed this one. Oliveira looked good landing leg kicks to start out, and SOPAJ looked like he had shit his pants in there, fighting on the big show. Now, fortunately for him, Oliveira got a little bit too happy with himself and comfortable and made an error which led to a takedown, and SOPAJ was able to mount and land some really nice shots. Now, in the second, this one really caught fire. SOPAJ found top control again and looked like he was close to finishing the fight, only for Oliveira to show some really good scrambles, reverse it out of nowhere, and get some ground and pound of his own. Now, I had no idea how to score both rounds at this point, but it was clear that Oliveira had gained the momentum at the end of the second, and his short notice opponent was clearly gassed going onto the stool at the beginning of the third. He ended up going to a neutral corner, looked a little bit lost, and the Brazilian saw the blood in the water, put the pressure on hard, and SOPAJ was clearly gassed, and at some point in the round he ended up dropping his hands, got caught being a little bit sloppy, and Oliveira came diving in with a devastating knee to the face, which completely flatlined him. Like, you literally saw SOPAJ's soul exit his body. This was a fun fight though. Both guys had their moments, and we got an excellent highlight reel finish, so that's always a positive. All right, so on to the main event of the prelims. We got the if you didn't care, well, you still don't care journeyman fight of the night. Jamie Pickett announced before the fight that he was retiring and going off in the sunset to ride bulls and buy some storage boxes or some shit. I think that's what I heard. And it kind of explains a lot, to be honest, when you think about his career. Like, I've never heard so much fucking drivel. I really can't get my head around Eryk Anders, though. There have been some fights where he does look alright, and others where he looks like a slobbery, fat, uncoordinated mess. Anyway, this fight was mostly boring as fuck. There was a lot of clinching, which Anders was getting the better of. But to my surprise, when they traded, it was Pickett having the biggest moments. Like, he hurt Anders early in the first round and then dropped him a little later in the round, which clearly won him it. Anders essentially won the second and the third by landing well-timed double legs and controlling for significant parts of both these rounds. Now, Anders ground it out, so well done to him, but this was highly forgettable and a little bit of a buzzkill for the cards. Anders won, well done, I guess. Good luck, Pickett, in your future endeavors and all that shit. All right, onto the main cards and flyweights to set this off. I'm really in favor of this, by the way. I really like cards that are very flyweight heavy because they rarely disappoint, and these two certainly didn't. This was another fun, high-paced fight. These men fought in the phone booth for as long as it lasted. ERCEG had the clear boxing advantage and was landing on Schnell and doing the more clear damage. But in fairness to Schnell, he was landing some of his own too. So even though I was looking at it and thinking, you're losing on the feet, what are you doing? He did have a couple of moments, so it wasn't complete and total retardation. He did almost catch ERCEG slipping as he was going for the finish. Now, if it transpired that Schnell actually had a staph infection leading up to the fight, and he made it known that he couldn't wrestle, and this would be his downfall. Like, you don't reveal that kind of information. He traded with ERCEG at the beginning of round 2, and got absolutely caught and flatlined at the beginning of the round. It was a nice, impressive, clean KO, brutal in real time. ERCEG actually then called out Moreno after the fight, and I don't think he's going to get it, but I like the balls on this dude. Like, his first fight was against a ranked opponent, so he's ranked immediately after his first fight, and then he's go on to beat 2 more ranked opponents in his corresponding fights after that, and he's won all 3. So ERCEG, Astro Boy, might be one to look out for. Very decent looking prospect. All right, now this one, we've got Umar Nurmagomedov versus ALMAKHAN. First thing I want to say, Daniel Cormier is such a fucking dick rider, and I'm beyond sick of it. Now, this one had everyone collectively scratching their heads when it was announced. It was rumored that Umar was going to be fighting Marab. Then it was going to be Corey. For one reason or another, neither fight materialized. And rightfully so, in my opinion. I don't care what surname the fucking guy has. He did not deserve to be considered for this much of a jump up this fast. You're ranked 13. Get in the queue with everyone else. I'm sick of these, like, you know, I'm sick of fighters getting preferential treatment just because you're from a certain region. Anyway, he gets matched with an unknown Kazakh. Fair enough, I guess. Nobody really expected too much, apart from this guy. As soon as I saw the line on Umar, I told people to leave this alone. And even though we did win the fight, I'm justified in my opinion on this one. Now let's get back to DC, the fucking Dagestani testicle gobbler. Basically at the beginning of the fight, he's calling Umar like really brave for taking on this unknown guy that's been fighting cans. Please just get off your knees. I'm sick of listening to this guy speak. Now, in fairness, early on, we almost had a holy fuck moment as ALMAKHAN like kind of clipped and dropped Umar as he was coming in. Now, honestly, when I was watching it live, it looked like he barely touched him, but he did kind of graze the temple, and Umar looked in serious trouble. If the Kazakh had been aware of how much damage he'd done, he might have been in a position to finish this fight. That's how much he hurt him, or appeared to hurt him. Now, I'm going to give credit to Umar. He did get his shit together. And in terms of fight IQ, which I like to spy on about a lot on this channel, this is an example of where it actually shows to be very high. Umar didn't lose his head and trade, which often happens. You know, when you're the favorite and you get clipped, how you often go on to lose fights in that situation is you rush in trying to get it back and you end up getting clipped again. He didn't do this. He went to his takedown entries and he managed to gain control when he needed to. But what really impressed me about ALMAKHAN was he was a constant threat when this was standing, and he actually showed some really excellent explosivity to get back up on his feet. Now, he was very, very easy to take down, and he's going to have to work on that if he's going to achieve anything in this division. But I was really impressed with this kid's debut. Umar did ground this one out. He had some really good moments of ground and pound. He got the job done against a clearly dangerous man. And I'm calling this now. I think this win is going to age really well. Based on what we saw from Umar on the feet, though, Corey would have beat the fuck out of him. And Umar then called him out in what was, I admit, quite a funny post-fight interview. So look out for that one. But yeah, good win for Umar. And look out for this Kazakh kid. I reckon he's going to be something in this division. All right, next one up, we have flyweights again. This one was actually billed as a title eliminator in the build-up, which is just very embarrassing and total bullshit. It says a lot about a lack of depth in this division, that they can utter this shit with straight faces on. Anyway, I think Mokaev should be ranked maybe 15th at best, and I've said this in videos in the past. And PEREZ has been part of 8 cancellations in his last 9, and got absolutely fucking smoked in his last fight. Now, despite all my shit talking, this was another high-paced, high-action fight mostly, and quite highly skilled. On a card that was turning out to be really damn good. Mokaev is a strange one for me, though. He has such good transitional takedowns, but is surprisingly so ineffective at keeping opponents down at times. And PEREZ in particular is usually really weak in his takedown defense. But by the end of the second round, he'd successfully stuffed 8 out of 10 takedowns. And that's really not a good look for Mokaev. Now, Mokaev basically did what Mokaev does. You know, he started out pretending like he's going to strike, then went for takedowns that were constantly being stuffed, but did manage to get one at the end of round 1 and land ground and pound. He lost the second, though, by failing to get takedowns and getting touched. Now, usually Mokaev is in this position and then ups the ante in the third. He didn't really quite do that this time. Now, he did win the third, but it was really close. Really weird takedown attempts where often he just kind of fell back and expected PEREZ to come into his guard. He did land a really nice belly-to-back suplex, which was the most significant moment of the round. Unfortunately for him, PEREZ was too dumb to land strikes when he was in a position to do so. Mokaev is not ready for a title fight, but he might just get it in a division that has no contenders. Manel Cap really fucked this whole division up by missing weight. If I was the UFC, I would give Mokaev Cap or Nicolau and see how we can get the division back on track. All right, on to the co-main event. This was mostly uneventful, especially for the first 2 rounds. There wasn't much activity. There was too much clinch time allowed in what was just a really disappointing start to the fight. PETRINO did control where the fight was, I suppose, and did throw with a lot more intent. So he probably won the first 2 rounds by default, as Pedro did pretty much fuck all. Now, credit to PETRINO, despite being ahead and not getting much threat coming back, he came out in the third swinging and coming forwards and was rewarded by catching Pedro off guard and landing a really explosive takedown, which he is becoming known for. He then controlled the rest of the rounds on Pedro's back, seeing out a comfortable but uneventful win. If I'm making this sound really boring, then great, I nailed it. It's another win for PETRINO, who I think is better than this performance shows, and I like seeing CKB fighters lose, so I'm sufficiently satisfied. Pedro retired, by the way. See you later. All right, on to the main event. We've got Gaziev versus Rosenstruik. Now, whoever decided that this was a good idea to put these fat fucking polar bears in a 5-round main event needs to be fired immediately. Rosenstruik has been bodied multiple times, and Gaziev is a 35-year-old having his second fight in the promotion. Now, to be fair to some extent, I don't want to shit on this entirely. These tubby fat fucks didn't really stand on ceremony much and did try to get after it, despite a total dearth of talent on both sides. Now, I said that Gaziev was a potential dark horse in this division in a video earlier on in the year. I may have to track that one down and eradicate it from existence, though. This guy is fucking whack. Awful entries and telegraph takedowns, and his stand-up was so sloppy. Rosenstruik was able to completely dominate the majority of this fight with a jab. Gaziev landed one takedown all evening and spent the majority of the rest of the night getting popped in the face with the exact same shot. There was no head movement. There was no guard. He's good at getting beaten up. That's about it. That's basically as kind as I can be. Now, some of the women's divisions get a lot of shit for being shallow. For me, though, men's heavyweight is actually the worst. Outside the top 5, they are all total shit. If you are a fat fuck that can throw hands, get off the couch right now. You could be a top 10 UFC fighter tomorrow. Now, Rosenstruik won. Gaziev is a fat fraud that quit before the final round. I have nothing else to say. Totally gutless way he went about it. Fuck that guy. Nice win for Rosenstruik, though. He does appear to be a very nice guy. Alright, so I went 8-3 on the card, which is fine. And despite the sour pussy way that this ended, this was generally an entertaining card that had some really great finishes. Now, I'm going to catch you all tomorrow for some more MMA topics. We've got 6 or 7 lined up and some really good ones coming up, so look out for those. Like, subscribe, and comment as always. Have a great one, and I'll catch you all for the breakdown of UFC 299 with Antoine from Making the Walk MMA on Tuesday in a few days. Peace, have a great one, and I'll see you then in a bit.